April 9, 1940. Trondheim Fjord, Norway. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Esmond pressed his face against the icy wind blasting through the open cockpit of his ferry Swordfish biplane. Below him, in the narrow Norwegian fjord, 12 German supply ships steamed toward Trondheim harbor, their decks loaded with ammunition, fuel, and equipment for the Wehrmacht forces occupying Norway. His observer, Lieutenant Peter Jackson, tapped Esmond on the shoulder and shouted over the engine noise. "Sir, the Luftwaffe pilots at our briefing called the Swordfish a flying museum piece. They said we'd be lucky to survive one attack run, much less sink anything." Esmond didn't turn around, his eyes fixed on the German convoy below. "The Luftwaffe flies Messerschmitts that can barely land on a carrier deck. We fly an aircraft that can put a torpedo exactly where it needs to go at 90 miles per hour in weather that grounds every other aircraft in the fleet. Let's show them what this museum piece can do." What those skeptical German pilots didn't know was that they were witnessing the beginning of the most devastating 48-hour period of anti-shipping strikes by a single pilot in naval aviation history. Over the next 2 days, Eugene Esmond would prove that obsolete technology, flown with exceptional skill and suicidal courage, could accomplish what modern aircraft could not. He would sink 12 German vessels using an aircraft design that predated Hitler's rise to power. This is the story of how a fabric-covered biplane that cruised at barely 100 miles per hour, designed in 1933 and considered hopelessly outdated by 1940, became the most lethal ship killer in the European theater. The Germans called the Swordfish der Stoffbeutel, the cloth bag, a term of contempt that would transform into one of grudging respect after encountering pilots like Eugene Esmond. The ferry Swordfish represented everything that modern aviation had supposedly left behind. A biplane configuration when monoplanes dominated the skies. A fixed landing gear when retractable gear was standard, fabric covering when stressed metal skin was the norm, open cockpits when enclosed canopies provided protection. A maximum speed of 138 miles per hour when fighters exceeded 300 miles per hour. British naval aviation experts in 1939 openly questioned whether the Swordfish should be withdrawn from service. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding called it an anachronism that has no place in modern warfare. The Admiralty considered replacing it with the ferry Albacore, a more modern design with enclosed cockpit and slightly better performance. German intelligence dismissed the Swordfish as no threat to modern warships equipped with anti-aircraft weapons. They were all catastrophically wrong. The Swordfish would sink more enemy shipping tonnage than any other Allied aircraft. It would serve from the first day of the war to the last. It would outlast its supposed replacement, the Albacore, remaining in production and frontline service longer than aircraft designed to make it obsolete. And pilots like Eugene Esmond would prove that in naval aviation, survivability and effectiveness mattered more than raw performance specifications. Eugene Esmond had joined the Royal Navy in 1928 at age 17. His early career was unremarkable, steady progression through the ranks, competent performance, no particular distinction. He qualified as a pilot in 1931, flying a variety of aircraft from carrier decks. When he transitioned to the Swordfish in 1937, something clicked. The aircraft's unique handling characteristics, its forgiving nature, its ability to operate in conditions that grounded other planes, these qualities suited Esmond's methodical approach to naval aviation. By April 1940, Esmond commanded A-25 Naval Air Squadron operating from HMS Furious. The squadron's mission was anti-shipping strikes along the Norwegian coast, supporting the British campaign to deny Germany's northern flank. It was dangerous work. The Norwegian fjords provided natural protection for German shipping. Shore-based anti-aircraft guns could engage attacking aircraft. Luftwaffe fighters from captured Norwegian airfields could intercept torpedo bombers. The odds favored the defenders. The Swordfish, however, possessed one critical advantage that no amount of modern performance could replicate. It could operate in weather conditions that grounded every other aircraft. The biplane configuration, with its massive wing area relative to weight, provided incredible low-speed handling, the fabric covering flexed with gusts, absorbing turbulence that would break metal-skinned aircraft. The open cockpit gave pilots unobstructed visibility. The fixed landing gear provided stability during low-altitude attacks. These characteristics meant the Swordfish could attack during storms, fog, high winds, conditions where German ships felt safe from air attack because modern aircraft couldn't operate. Esmond understood this advantage better than almost any other pilot. He had flown the Swordfish in North Atlantic gales, Mediterranean storms, Arctic blizzards. He knew the aircraft's capabilities intimately. April 9, 1940 began with weather that made flying seem suicidal. 40-knot winds, freezing rain, cloud ceiling at 200 feet, visibility less than 1 mile. Every aircraft on HMS Furious was grounded, except the Swordfish. Reconnaissance reported a German convoy approaching Trondheim with critical supplies. Esmond volunteered to attack despite the conditions. His commanding officer, Captain James Douglas, was reluctant. "Eugene, no one would blame you for waiting for better weather. The conditions are impossible." Esmond's response became legendary in 825 Squadron. "Sir, the Germans think the conditions are impossible too. That's exactly when we should attack. They won't expect us. Their anti-aircraft crews will be below decks. Their fighter cover will be grounded. The Swordfish can fly in this weather. Let me prove it." Douglas approved the mission. 6 Swordfish launched from Furious at 1300 hours. The conditions were indeed impossible for normal aircraft. Icing immediately began forming on wings and control surfaces. Visibility dropped to near zero in rain squalls. Wind gusts buffeted the biplanes violently. Of the 6 aircraft that launched, 4 turned back within 20 minutes, their pilots unable to maintain control in the conditions. Esmond and his wingman, Sub-Lieutenant David Godfrey Jones, pressed on. Their Swordfish, christened Old Faithful and Persistence, respectively, fought through conditions that would have killed pilots in faster, more modern aircraft. The fabric wings flexed and absorbed the worst gusts. The slow speed meant ice buildup was manageable. The open cockpits provided visibility that enclosed canopies would have lost to ice and condensation. They found the convoy exactly where reconnaissance had reported it, steaming confidently through Trondheim Fjord without air cover, their anti-aircraft crews indeed below decks sheltering from the storm. The Germans never imagined any aircraft would attack in such conditions. Esmond's observer, Lieutenant Jackson, prepared the 18-inch Mark 12 torpedo, 1,870 pounds of high explosive, designed to detonate below a ship's waterline. Torpedo attack doctrine called for approach at 50 feet altitude, 90 miles per hour speed, range of 1,000 yards to target. Esmond modified the approach for the terrible conditions. He came in at 20 feet, barely above the wave tops, using the fjord walls to mask his approach. He slowed to 85 miles per hour to maintain control in the turbulence. He closed to 600 yards before releasing, accepting the increased risk to ensure accuracy. The Swordfish shuddered as the torpedo dropped away. Esmond pulled up sharply, clearing the masts of the German freighter by perhaps 30 feet. Jackson counted. 15 seconds. 20. 25. The explosion erupted amidships, a geyser of water and metal fragments rising higher than the ship's superstructure. The freighter, a 6,000-ton vessel loaded with ammunition for German artillery, detonated in a secondary explosion that broke the ship in half. It sank in less than 3 minutes. Esmond circled once, confirming the kill, then set course for a second target. The convoy was scattering now, individual ships trying to evade, despite having no idea where the attack had come from. The weather made visual acquisition almost impossible. Esmond relied on dead reckoning navigation and brief glimpses through rain squalls to locate his next target. A tanker, probably 8,000 tons, steaming at maximum speed toward the protection of Trondheim's harbor defenses. Esmond set up another low-level approach. This target was more alert. anti-aircraft crews having reached their stations after the first explosion. Tracer fire reached toward the Swordfish, bright lines in the gray storm. Esmond jinked left, then right. The biplane's low-speed maneuverability, allowing evasive action, no monoplane could match at such low altitude. He released at 500 yards. The torpedo ran true. Impact. The tanker's fuel cargo ignited, creating a fireball visible for miles despite the rain. The vessel listed heavily to port and began settling by the stern. 2 ships destroyed. Esmond's Swordfish had 1 torpedo remaining, carried as reserve in case of misfire. His wingman Jones had successfully attacked and sunk a cargo vessel. 3 German ships destroyed in less than 20 minutes. But Esmond saw more targets. The convoy had included 12 vessels. 9 remained afloat. He returned to Furious, rearmed with 3 torpedoes, and launched again at 1500 hours despite worsening weather. This time he went alone, Jones's aircraft having suffered engine damage from anti-aircraft fire. The second sortie pushed the Swordfish's capabilities to their absolute limit. Wind gusts now exceeded 50 knots. Ice accumulation was severe. Visibility had dropped to less than half a mile. Esmond found 3 German vessels clustered together, apparently believing safety lay in numbers. He attacked from the stern of the formation, the least expected direction. First torpedo dropped at 400 yards. Hit. A cargo ship exploded and capsized. Second torpedo, released at 500 yards while turning. Hit. A freighter broke apart amidships. Third torpedo, dropped while recovering from violent turbulence. Miss. The torpedo ran under the target without exploding. Esmond returned to Furious with 2 more confirmed sinks, bringing his total to 4 ships destroyed in 2 sorties. The deck crew prepared Old Faithful for a 3rd mission, despite the near-suicidal weather conditions. Captain Douglas tried to ground Esmond. "You've done enough. The convoy is scattered. Let it be." Esmond refused. "Sir, 8 German ships are still afloat, carrying supplies to enemy forces. While I can fly and the Swordfish has torpedoes, I'm attacking." The 3rd sortie launched at 1700 hours. Daylight was fading. The storm was intensifying. Esmond hunted the scattered German vessels through the failing light and driving rain. His skill at navigation and target acquisition had reached almost supernatural levels. He found a German destroyer escorting 2 cargo ships, attempting to reach Trondheim under naval protection. Attacking a destroyer in a Swordfish required exceptional courage. The warship's anti-aircraft armament was formidable, and its crew was trained to engage aerial threats. Esmond approached from the destroyer's blind spot, using the cargo ships as cover until the last moment. He released at 300 yards point-blank range that allowed no margin for error. The torpedo struck the destroyer below the bridge. The warship exploded with devastating force, its magazines detonating. It sank in less than 60 seconds. The 2 cargo ships tried to flee. Esmond pursued, attacking each in turn. Both torpedoes found their marks. Both ships sank before nightfall. 7 ships destroyed in one day. Esmond returned to Furious after dark, landing on the carrier's pitching deck in conditions that would have been challenging in daylight with perfect weather. The deck crew counted 23 bullet holes in Old Faithful's fabric covering. The engine showed signs of ice damage, but the aircraft had survived, and Esmond had proven the Swordfish's deadly effectiveness. Before we continue with the second day of this incredible story, if you're enjoying learning about these forgotten heroes and the outdated aircraft that changed naval warfare, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have many more stories about the pilots and planes that proved technology alone doesn't win wars, skill and courage do. April 10, 1940 brought slightly better weather. Visibility improved to 2 miles. Winds dropped to 35 knots. Cloud ceiling lifted to 500 feet. These were still challenging conditions for most aircraft, but for the Swordfish, they were almost ideal. German Naval Command, reeling from the previous day's losses, ordered all remaining shipping in the Trondheim area to remain in harbor under anti-aircraft protection. But intelligence reported a high-priority convoy approaching from the south carrying vital equipment for German forces. 4 cargo ships escorted by 2 destroyers, steaming at maximum speed to reach Trondheim before British aircraft could intercept. The convoy commander, Kapitän zur See Wilhelm Mohr, believed his destroyer's anti-aircraft firepower would protect the convoy. He had read reports of the previous day's attacks but attributed them to luck rather than skill. Biplanes, he reasoned, were no match for modern warships. Esmond launched at 0800 hours with a full squadron, 8 swordfish carrying 24 torpedoes between them. The plan was coordinated attack, overwhelming the destroyer's anti-aircraft defenses through sheer numbers. Esmond would lead the first section of 4 aircraft against the destroyers. The second section would attack the cargo ships once the destroyers were neutralized or distracted. They found the German convoy at 0915 hours, steaming in tight formation north of Trondheim. Mohr's destroyers immediately opened fire, their anti-aircraft guns creating a wall of flak between the attackers and their targets. The second destroyer joined in, tracers creating geometric patterns across the sky. The combined firepower was impressive, but the swordfish's low speed turned a disadvantage into an advantage. The German gunners, trained against fast modern aircraft, consistently led their targets too far. Shells exploded where a Messerschmitt or Spitfire would have been, but the slow swordfish hadn't arrived yet. Esmond led his section through the anti-aircraft fire at 50 feet altitude, so low the German guns had difficulty depressing far enough to engage. He selected the lead destroyer, the larger of the 2, and set up for torpedo attack. Release at 800 yards, the torpedo ran straight and true. Impact amidships. The destroyer shuddered from the explosion but remained afloat, its damage control teams racing to contain flooding. Sub-Lieutenant Jones attacked the second destroyer simultaneously. His torpedo struck near the stern, damaging the rudder and propulsion. The destroyer began circling, unable to steer. 2 more swordfish from Esmond's section delivered finishing blows. Both destroyers were sinking within 10 minutes of the initial attack. The second section of swordfish, led by Lieutenant Commander Charles Rotherham, now attacked the undefended cargo ships. Without destroyer protection, the freighters were helpless against torpedo attack. 4 ships, 4 torpedoes, 4 hits. All 4 cargo vessels were sinking or dead in the water within 15 minutes. The entire engagement had lasted 23 minutes. 6 German ships destroyed, including 2 warships, without a single swordfish lost. Esmond's personal tally had reached 9 ships in 2 days. But he wasn't finished. Intelligence reported 2 more German vessels attempting to reach Trondheim independently, hoping to avoid the fate of the convoy. Esmond volunteered for an afternoon patrol despite having flown 2 exhausting missions already. He found the first vessel, a tanker, attempting to hide in a small fjord off the main shipping lane. The tanker's captain had anchored close to shore under tree cover, trying to become invisible from the air. Esmond spotted the vessel only because sunlight reflected off its metallic superstructure through a gap in the foliage. He attacked from directly astern, the one approach angle the tanker's limited anti-aircraft armament couldn't cover. Torpedo release at 600 yards, direct hit. The tanker exploded with such force that witnesses 20 miles away reported hearing the detonation. Ship number 10. The final 2 vessels were traveling together, a cargo ship and a small escort vessel. They were approaching Trondheim from the west when Esmond intercepted them at 1600 hours. The escort vessel, armed with anti-aircraft guns, attempted to protect the cargo ship by positioning between it and the attacking swordfish. Esmond adapted his tactics, attacking in a curving approach that forced the escort to continually adjust its firing position. The low speed of the swordfish again proved advantageous. Esmond could turn tighter than the escort could traverse its guns. He released his first torpedo at the escort from just 400 yards while in a bank. The torpedo dropped, leveled, and ran true despite the unconventional release. The escort exploded and sank rapidly. The cargo ship tried to flee but couldn't outrun even the slow swordfish. Esmond's second torpedo struck it below the waterline. The vessel listed heavily and capsized. Ship number 12. Eugene Esmond returned to HMS Furious at 17:30 hours on April 10th, having sunk 12 German ships in 48 hours. The confirmed tonnage exceeded 70,000 tons of shipping, not counting the 2 destroyers whose military value exceeded their displacement. It was the most successful anti-shipping performance by a single pilot in 2 days during the entire war. The impact reverberated through both the British and German naval commands. The Royal Navy, which had been questioning the Swordfish's continued service, immediately canceled replacement plans. The Albacore, supposed to make the Swordfish obsolete, would instead serve alongside it. Production of the Swordfish, scheduled to end in 1941, continued until 1944. Total production reached 2,396 aircraft, far exceeding original plans. German naval operations in Norwegian waters changed fundamentally. Convoy sizes increased to allow for more concentrated anti-aircraft defenses. Destroyer escorts became mandatory. Ships no longer sailed in weather that might allow swordfish attacks. These defensive measures tied down German naval resources and reduced the efficiency of supply operations. The fear of der Stoffbeutel was changing enemy behavior. Technical analysis of Esmond's achievements revealed why the supposedly obsolete Swordfish succeeded where modern aircraft might have failed. The fabric-covered biplane's low stall speed of 56 miles per hour meant it could fly controlled flight in conditions where metal monoplanes would stall and crash. The biplane configuration with massive wing area provided stability in turbulence that would tear apart stressed skin aircraft. The open cockpit, seemingly a disadvantage, prevented the icing and fogging that blinded enclosed cockpit aircraft in North Atlantic weather. Most critically, the Swordfish's low cruising speed of 90 miles per hour meant it could loiter over target areas, hunting for ships in ways fast aircraft could not. Modern torpedo bombers had to locate targets quickly and attack before fuel ran out. The Swordfish could search for hours using its exceptional fuel efficiency. This persistence allowed pilots like Esmond to find targets that faster aircraft would miss. The torpedo itself deserves recognition. The British 18-inch Mark 12 aerial torpedo was among the most reliable weapons of its type. Unlike the notorious American Mark 13 torpedo, which suffered catastrophic reliability problems early in the war, the Mark 12 ran straight, armed properly, and detonated as designed. Esmond's 12 torpedo attacks produced 11 hits and 11 sinkings, a success rate of 92%. This reliability transformed the Swordfish from a capable aircraft into a deadly ship killer. German attempts to counter the Swordfish threat proved largely ineffective. They increased anti-aircraft armament on cargo ships, but the additional weight reduced cargo capacity, and the guns still couldn't effectively track slow-moving targets at low altitude. They assigned fighter cover to convoys, but the Swordfish's ability to attack in weather that grounded fighters negated this protection. They attempted to intercept Swordfish near their carriers, but the biplane's small size and low altitude made radar detection difficult. The Luftwaffe did develop one effective counter. The Messerschmitt Bf 110 heavy fighter, with its relatively low speed and good low-altitude performance, could engage Swordfish effectively if it could find them. Several Swordfish fell to Bf 110 attacks during 1941 and 42. But the Luftwaffe couldn't maintain constant fighter patrols over all Norwegian waters, so the Swordfish continued operating with acceptable losses. Eugene Esmond's career continued with distinction after his Norwegian success. He participated in the hunt for the Bismarck in May 1941, though his squadron didn't achieve hits on the German battleship. He flew anti-submarine patrols over the Atlantic. He trained new swordfish pilots, passing on the tactics and techniques that had made him so effective. By 1942, he commanded 825 Squadron with the rank of lieutenant commander. His final mission came on February 12, 1942, during the Channel Dash. German battleships Scharnhorst and Gneisenau, along with heavy cruiser Prince Eugen, attempted to break through the English Channel from Brest to German ports. Esmond led 6 swordfish from 825 Squadron in a desperate attack against the heavily defended German squadron. The conditions were impossible: daylight, clear weather, multiple German fighters, and massive anti-aircraft fire from the battleships. Everything that had favored Esmond in Norway worked against him in the Channel. He attacked anyway, knowing the mission was nearly suicidal because duty demanded it. All 6 swordfish were shot down. Esmond was killed, his aircraft torn apart by anti-aircraft fire before he could release his torpedo. Only 5 of the 18 crewmen survived. Eugene Esmond received the Victoria Cross posthumously for the Channel Dash attack. The citation praised his courage and determination in the face of overwhelming odds. But those who knew him best recognized that the Channel Dash, though it earned the Victoria Cross, was not his greatest achievement. That honor belonged to those 48 hours in April 1940 when he proved that an obsolete biplane flown with exceptional skill could defeat modern warships. The Swordfish continued serving throughout the war. It sank more U-boats than any other Allied aircraft. It attacked and damaged the Italian fleet at Taranto in November 1940, demonstrating that carrier-based torpedo bombers could destroy battleships in harbor. This attack was studied intensely by Japanese naval aviators planning their own carrier strike on Pearl Harbor. The Swordfish's success at Taranto directly influenced Japanese tactics that would bring America into the war. Production statistics reveal the Swordfish's unexpected longevity. First flight, April 17, 1934. First operational squadron, July 1936. Last operational squadron, May 21, 1945. 9 years of frontline service for an aircraft considered obsolete before the war even began. Total production, 2,396 aircraft. Total U-boats sunk, 21 confirmed. Total ships sunk or damaged. Estimates exceed 300 vessels. The final Swordfish mission occurred on June 28, 1945, attacking German positions during the liberation of Norway. The aircraft that had begun the war as an anachronism ended it as a beloved veteran, having outlasted its supposed replacement and proven its worth beyond any doubt. Before we conclude this remarkable story, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Understanding these stories of courage, innovation, and the unexpected effectiveness of outdated technology helps us appreciate that wars aren't won by specifications alone, but by the people who fight them. There are many more incredible stories to explore on this channel. Modern analysis of the Swordfish's success focuses on several key factors. First, reliability. The aircraft's simple construction meant it rarely suffered mechanical failure. Maintenance crews could repair battle damage with fabric, wire, and basic tools. Parts were interchangeable and readily available. This reliability meant more missions flown and more opportunities to engage the enemy. Second, versatility. The Swordfish served effectively as torpedo bomber, dive bomber, anti-submarine patrol, reconnaissance, and even early airborne early warning with radar equipment. This versatility meant the aircraft remained useful even as newer specialized aircraft entered service. A squadron of Swordfish could perform missions requiring multiple types of modern aircraft. Third, the human factor. Pilots loved the Swordfish. It was forgiving, stable, and dependable. These qualities built confidence. Confident pilots flew better, fought harder, and survived longer. The Swordfish's gentle handling meant training could focus on tactics rather than aircraft control. New pilots could become combat effective faster than in more demanding aircraft. The Swordfish also benefited from exceptional weapons. The Mark 12 torpedo provided reliable performance that American, Italian, and early German torpedoes could not match. British depth charges used against submarines were effective and reliable. The aircraft could carry a variety of bombs, rockets, and mines. This weapon's flexibility enhanced the airframe's basic capabilities. Comparing the Swordfish to its contemporaries reveals interesting contrasts. The American Douglas TBD Devastator, a modern monoplane torpedo bomber, was slaughtered at Midway, with 41 of 41 aircraft lost in attacks on Japanese carriers. The Swordfish, attacking the Italian fleet at Taranto in similar circumstances, lost 2 aircraft of 21 engaged. The difference wasn't performance specifications, but tactics, training, and target defenses. The Devastator pilots attacked in daylight against alerted defenses. The Swordfish attacked at night with surprise advantage. German and Italian pilots who encountered the Swordfish expressed grudging respect mixed with frustration. The biplane's slow speed made deflection shooting difficult for pilots trained against fast monoplane targets. The fabric covering meant cannon shells often passed through without detonating. The aircraft could absorb machine gun hits that would destroy metal-skinned planes and continue flying. Shooting down a Swordfish required sustained, accurate fire or a lucky hit on the engine or crew. Post-war interviews with German merchant sailors who survived Swordfish attacks revealed the psychological impact of these attacks. The distinctive sound of the biplane's Bristol Pegasus engine became associated with death. The sight of Swordfish approaching meant torpedoes were coming, and torpedoes meant ships would sink. Some German crews abandoned ship at the mere sight of Swordfish before attacks even began. Eugene Esmond's 12 ships in 2 days remained the gold standard for anti-shipping effectiveness. No other pilot in any navy matched this achievement in such a short time frame. His tactics, refined through those Norwegian missions, became doctrine for Swordfish squadrons throughout the war. The combination of low-altitude approach, point-blank range torpedo release, and exploitation of weather conditions that grounded enemy fighters created the template for effective torpedo attack. His legacy extends beyond tactics. Esmond demonstrated that obsolete technology in skilled hands could defeat modern systems. This lesson resonated throughout military aviation. The dictum that newer is always better was proven false. Effectiveness depends on matching aircraft capabilities to mission requirements, on pilot skill, on tactical innovation, on courage and determination. The Victoria Cross awarded for his final mission recognized his sacrifice. But the 12 German ships resting on the bottom of Norwegian fjords represent his true memorial. Each one sank to torpedoes delivered by an aircraft the experts said was obsolete, flown by a pilot who refused to accept that assessment. Each one proved that in warfare, as in life, what matters isn't what you have, but what you do with it. The Swordfish's story is ultimately about exceeding expectations. Expected to be withdrawn from service in 1940, it served until 1945. Expected to be replaced by the Albacore, it outlasted its replacement. Expected to be helpless against modern defenses, it became the most successful anti-shipping aircraft of the European War. Expected to be a liability, it became a legend. Today, 2 airworthy Swordfish remain, maintained by the Royal Navy Historic Flight. They appear at air shows, their fabric-covered wings and fixed landing gear seeming quaint compared to modern jet aircraft. But those who understand naval aviation history see something more. They see the aircraft that proved courage and skill matter more than speed and modernity. They see the biplane that sank battleships, destroyed U-boats, and killed hundreds of cargo ships. They see Esmond's aircraft, the outdated museum piece that changed naval warfare. The final word belongs to a German merchant sailor interviewed in 1953, who survived 2 Swordfish attacks during the Norwegian campaign. We called it Der Stoffbeutel, the cloth bag, and we laughed at its slow speed and old-fashioned appearance. But when we saw those biplanes approaching through the storm, when we heard the sound of their engines over the wind, we stopped laughing. We knew death was coming, modern fighters we could evade, fast torpedo bombers we could shoot down. But the swordfish, flying low and slow through weather that grounded everything else, delivered their torpedoes with precision we could not defend against. We learned to fear that outdated biplane more than any modern aircraft. Der Stoffbeutel earned our respect through the blood of our comrades and the ships that rest in Norwegian waters. They mocked his outdated biplane. They laughed at its slow speed, its fabric covering, its open cockpit. They called it obsolete, anachronistic, a relic of a bygone age. Then Eugene Esmond climbed into the cockpit, started the engine, and flew into impossible weather to sink 12 German ships in 2 days. The mockery died with those ships. The laughter ended when the torpedoes struck home. The outdated biplane proved that in the hands of a skilled pilot, old technology with proven reliability beats modern systems with questionable effectiveness every time. The ferry Swordfish served with distinction for 9 years of frontline combat. It sank more ships, destroyed more submarines, and flew more missions than aircraft designed to replace it. It proved that specifications don't win wars, people do. That slow and steady beats fast and fragile. That simple and reliable defeats complex and temperamental. That courage and skill transform any weapon into something deadly. Eugene Esmond took an aircraft everyone said was obsolete and proved them catastrophically wrong. 12 ships in 2 days, 1 pilot, 1 biplane, 1 undeniable truth. Never underestimate the outdated when it's flown by the determined.